Next man up, but the next man didn't matter. Islam Makhachev making quick work of Renato Moicano. First round submission, which gives him 13 wins via submission. It gives him 15 straight wins in his career and a 27-1 record. I mean, this guy is a machine. And now he's got the most title fight wins in UFC lightweight history with 5 as he defeats Renato Moicano via first-round submission at UFC 311. And for more, welcome in CBS Sports combat analyst Brian Campbell. Moicano steps in for the injured Sarukian to face Makhachev. We know Moicano is ready to fill in, having already been on the card, making championship weight. So it wasn't like he was sitting at home on the couch, BC, but you really wouldn't know if he was sitting on the couch because what Makhachev did to him was absolutely surgical. Your reaction to how that ended?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways you could say, look, this was expected to happen with a late opponent switch and somebody like Moicano, who was riding a win streak but doesn't have the technical ability on the level of Islam Makhachev. But I still want to give the champion and the pound-for-pound king his flowers. Why? Because how many champions would have accepted a new title challenger on less than 24 hours notice like Makhachev did? He put out a video immediately after telling Dana White, I do this. This is what I do. Let's not forget that John Jones once famously refused to fight Chael Sonnen on short notice after Dan Henderson pulled out at UFC 152, and they canceled the entire card. Makhachev took some early punches from Moicano, but once he was able to take him down and work for precision, you saw the precision of what Makhachev does. It's not just that this fight puts him in his own space historically as the most successful lightweight champion in UFC history. It's not enough, as I mentioned, that he defended his status as pound-for-pound king. This victory is 15 consecutive inside the octagon for Makhachev, placing him one shy of Anderson Silva's record that at times felt like it would be unbreakable. Why? Because it's so easy to lose in this difficult sport. Yet Islam Makhachev, just a few minutes after his teammate lost in the co-main event and less than a day that his opponent got changed, it was death, taxes, and Islam by submission once again.
Yeah, it appeared that he got a takedown, that Moicano got a takedown, but he actually slipped. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe Moicano's going to bring something. He said he's going to shock the world. Instead, it was an absolute clinic right there for Makhachev. So what is next for him as he continues to defend his title?
You know, he certainly came out when asked that by Joe Rogan after the fight and said, this is my title. Get in line. Whoever wants it next, show up in the cage in front of me. But I'm wondering whether this was Makhachev's last fight at 155 pounds. Why? Because if you go back to how this team was founded in Dagestan, Russia, when Khabib Nurmagomedov's late father, Abdulmanap, the coach of Eagles MMA, who started this camp, he had very strategic plans for his fighters. That as soon as Khabib would reach a certain level, he would retire, and Islam, his teammate, would take over. It seems to be that a similar plan is coming for Usman Nurmagomedov, the unbeaten younger cousin of Khabib, who's currently with the PFL. He's the Bellator lightweight champion. But the idea that he's coming to the UFC seems inevitable, just as much as it seems like Makhachev could move up to welterweight. In all interviews this week, he said, what fight do I want the most? The winner, of course, of the champion Belal Muhammad against Shavkat Rakhmonov, which we expect this year. Now, Islam and Belal, they're managed by the same man. They said they would never fight each other, but most experts believe this is Shavkat Rakhmonov's division at welterweight. Could you imagine Islam, the greatest fighter currently in the world right now, moving up to face that killer? I think the idea of becoming a two-division champion for the 33-year-old Makhachev is the next step. It's what could separate him from Khabib's great legacy. But either way, whether he stays in the division or whether he goes, you're dealing with a top fighter right now, one of the best we've ever seen. And oh, by the way, how about Ilia Topuria on X after the fight, making it seem like he would like Islam next. So there's certainly going to be a lot of options there as the featherweight champion's voice was heard. Either way, Islam keeps getting it done.
Yeah, one thing's clear, Makhachev needs a challenge. He needs a challenge. You put guys in front of him, it doesn't matter. 15-fight win streak, most title fight wins in lightweight history with 5. Title fight in the co-main. This fight was awesome. UFC bantamweight champ Merab Dvalishvili putting his belt on the line against the undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov, the cousin of who we just talked about, the legend Khabib. Merab riding an 11-fight win streak, and the champ is the dog in this fight. And the dog, BC, is barking loudly, defeats Umar via unanimous decision. What's your reaction to this fight? Because I thought this fight was incredible.
Look, through 2 rounds, it looked like Umar Nurmagomedov was everything we thought he was. Undefeated, the next in line after Khabib and Islam in that great lineage and tradition. But what do we forget about? The fact that Merab Dvalishvili doesn't just have the best cardio, maybe, that we've ever seen in UFC history. He, like his nickname, The Machine, says, is just built different. This was an absolutely thrilling and incredible comeback from Merab, who was down 2-0 on 2 of 3 scorecards entering round 3. And he just never stopped coming forward. Could you imagine what we saw this week where it looked like Umar was in the champion's head throughout? Every time there was an interview, you saw Merab saying, the UFC pressured me into this fight when I was hurt. Why is Umar getting the title shot when he hasn't beaten enough top-level fighters? It's just because of his name. Well, even though it looked like that through 10 minutes of the fight, this fight was scheduled for 25 minutes. And over those final 3 rounds, Merab pushed the pace, kept going for takedowns, kept bringing the offense. This was an inspirational victory for him in so many ways. It was an instant classic, like we said, a technical masterpiece. But to see Merab, with the fight in the balance, a minute to go in round 5, score a big takedown and then point at Umar after he hurt him with the right hand, that takedown broke the UFC record held by George St. Pierre for the most successful takedowns in the company's history. So you're watching with Merab at age 34, a different fighter. Maybe he doesn't have the same skill level as very few above him, but who can match this guy when it comes to pace, output, relentlessness? There's this inevitability about Merab that he is going to make you work for it. And to see him break one of the can't-miss up-and-coming fighters who was the betting favorite by a wide margin as the challenger, this was a humble victory in so many ways. Merab's just different, and we saw this on full display in the toughest fight of his career.
Yeah, how dare Vegas makes Merab Dvalishvili the dog here. And I get it, but we had Danny Brasco on here earlier in the week, and he said, this is easy money. Put your money on Merab. I respect Nurmagomedov. I respect the camp that he's in, but you got to put your money on the value, and you put it on Merab, and he's now on a fight win streak of 12 in a row as he retains the bantamweight title. Also on the card, Yuri Prochazka clashing with Jamal Hill in a light heavyweight bout that could declare the next title challenger. Yuri stops Hill via 3rd-round TKO. This fight was fun, too. I enjoyed this card. This was really fun there in Inglewood, California. BC, what does this win mean for Prochazka, who's already lost to Alex Pereira 2 times?
Well, here's the interesting part about this. Prochazka, who fought for a UFC title in just his 3rd bout in the octagon, is 5-0 with 5 stoppages against everyone not named, Poatan, Alex Pereira, who stopped him twice over the past year and a half in title bouts. But in the post-fight interview, you may have heard it, they asked Yuri where he wants to go next, who's next, and he said, you might not believe me, but I want Poatan a 3rd time. Look, Prochazka is unconventional. He largely fights with his hands down. Part of what made this fight so fun to watch was 2 former champions with big-time power, but maybe 2 guys that don't always stay committed to defense. They stood right across from each other and just dueled the whole time. But even though Prochazka often fights with his hands down, he moved his head throughout. He worked on tightening up his game more without sacrificing who he is. An absolute unorthodox wild man with a great chin who can end the fight at any time. When he found that opening in round 3 with his counterpunching, he did just that to Jamal Hill. And even though you say to yourself, well, he's lost to the champion twice, the thing is about Prochazka is he makes crazy fun fights every time out. We're going to see the champion Alex Pereira. It was just announced tonight, defend his title in March at UFC 312 against Magomed Ankalaev, the #1 contender, a very tough style matchup for him. And of course, there's teases that maybe Poatan can move on to the heavyweight division and try to become a 3-division champion. But should he stay around, it would be hard to deny Prochazka. He's knocking out everybody else he's coming across besides Pereira, and he made another huge statement, and in the process, showed a little bit of improvement. You can't tame the beast, Hakeem.
No.
This guy's going to be who he is, but to see that head movement out there at close range, we see a guy who's at least trying to fix the holes in his game. This could be interesting down the line.
Another great night for the UFC. Brian Campbell here on CBS Sports HQ recapping UFC 311 in Inglewood, California. BC, thanks. And in 3 weeks' time, UFC 312 from Sydney, Australia, as we take a look at the main card, headlined by the champ, Dricus du Plessis, in a rematch against Sean Strickland for the middleweight title. Zhang Weili defending her strawweight title against Tatiana Suarez in the co-main event. UFC 312 coming your way February 8th.